don't know why it didn't show our intro. Oh, hello. I love technology. I don't know if it started with me saying, I don't know why it's not showing our intro, but if it did, that's par for the course. So we have some really cool new features that I'm excited about because in the past, when people would be watching our show on their mobile, it just squished us or it made this weird like strip in the middle. For those of you that don't know, my background is in broadcasting, so I'm always messing with the show. But anyway, there's a new feature where it should be showing it vertically on your mobile where you can actually look at it and we don't look squished. So I'm excited. And I guess I should back up and introduce us. I'm Rosa Linda Roman. I go by Rosa Linda, and I'm here with my dear friend, A.K. Vyas, also known as Ash. We are both indie authors, multi-published indie authors. And today we're actually going to talk about the stories behind the stories. This is our weekly show called Friends and Authors Live. And let's get into it. How are you, Ash?
Great. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So we were talking about, I get asked this a lot. Well, where did your stories come from? How does you magically pull it out of the air? So I thought it would be, we talked about it would be really fun to
Yeah.
talk about this today. Are we
Sure.
having technical problems? All right, let's get started. You start. You just were sharing with me kind of how
Yeah.
times have changed, right, with your writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. I can just give you the chronology that it took me 20 years to write this book. But since then, I've written 13 more, three series. My books are in bookstores and libraries across the world and have been translated from English into Spanish, French, German, and as of today, Portuguese. And the reason is I knew something that turned out to be false. I knew that I was a talented writer, but real authors have agents and publishing deals. And so I never even tried because it wasn't my profession. And then the pandemic came, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to publish one book and let the readers decide. And so
And they
I'm thinking,
decided for
whatever it
real.
is that's holding you back might be false too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. That's actually very, very true for me as well. I wrote this book. It took me 25 years, right? It was a screenplay, and then it eventually converted to a novel. That book took me 25 years. I actually just found the journal entry from when I was a reporter in Phoenix when I was working on the screenplay Death Wounds. And that was in 2000. And then now I've written these three plus, actually these four, my memoir too, but these three plus one more novel in the last year. So not as many as Ash, who is prolific, but still, like the timeline has shrunk, and a lot of that is because of the story I told myself about why I couldn't do it and why it wasn't enough. And yeah, it's amazing how once you get past that hurdle, the first one is, I think, the hardest. And then once you get past that and tell yourself you're an author for real, instead of waiting for someone else to tell you that you're an author and give you permission to be an author, for you, the permission came from COVID because everything was shut down and like, what were you going to do? Right. And for me, the permission came actually going to a writers conference, meeting Steve Higgs, meeting Adina, and several other authors who are just doing it and taught me that oh, you mean I can actually publish books? I can do that? Gave me permission. And then I gave myself permission after that.
Yeah, it's really counterintuitive. I truly believe the things that limit us are not things we don't know because we can go figure those out and go learn them. It's the things we know that simply aren't true,
Mm,
right? That's what keeps us from doing the things we want to do in life.
yeah. There's so many things we do that with ourselves, and we play these games and we convince ourselves that it's not good enough, it's not this, it's not that. But ultimately it's up to the readers to decide that. And when you self-select yourself out of the equation and tell yourself that you don't deserve to be in the room, guess what? It becomes true.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Once you remove the middlemen, it's just you and the readers, and they get a vote. If they vote yes, you're an author.
Yeah. So I wanted to let people know if they're here live, by the way, you can put comments in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, even on Substack, and we can pop those questions and thoughts up here live in the studio. So feel free to use the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And I see that we have a lot of people here, so that's very exciting. Whoever's here, welcome. We're very glad you're here. One of the things we were talking about, Ash, is that people wonder, like, they read your book and they go, well, is that true? Did that really happen? Is that fact? Is that fiction for real? Or is it actually based on something that actually happened? And I thought we could talk a little bit about some of the things that are real, even though they're fiction in our books.
Yeah, I would think that it is definitely more apropos for you. I mean, I write, serial killers and prehistoric times, which none of which I've experienced directly. But you were a journalist for a very long time, right? And I
Yeah.
imagine a lot of your experiences somehow found their way to influence your work.
A lot. It's funny because when we talked about the subject for this show, I realized there's so many things that I weave into the stories, into the series Catalina's Chronicles, because the protagonist is a young Latina TV news reporter working initially in Valdosta, Georgia, and that was one of my first jobs out of college, working in a bureau in Valdosta, Georgia. I was just reading one of the opening scenes in Death Wounds where she's going live, the reporter, Catalina, is going live, and they're on the scene of they found a 55-gallon drum buried in the backyard. And she has to, they're figuring out if it's a key part of this story that obviously unfolds throughout the book. But that actually happened. Like, that is a story that I covered when I was a young reporter in Valdosta, Georgia. I was live on the air and very nervous because I was pretty new. And they had said that they thought somebody had been buried in this, sealed in this 55-gallon drum. And sure enough, they opened it while I was live on the air. So you can imagine the story that I wrote was based on, like, I could describe the smell and I could describe the feeling of being live on the air and trying to keep it together when all the while you just want to run away and lose your lunch. So yeah, it's interesting. I realize how many stories I've woven into these stories.
Well, that's real, right? Like, people can write about investigative journalism and crime cases and all the things that you've seen, but you've actually lived it. And so when you put pen to paper, it's very different.
Yeah, I mean, you really draw on your experience. I think most authors do. I think we pull our life experience into our stories. I know a lot of people who say, oh no, I just make up my characters. But you, even just in terms of relationships and personalities, you learn about those characters from people you've met in your lifetime. The nuances of how they speak or how they interact with someone, even if it's fiction. I think a good story is fact-based fiction, where you can identify with that character because they lived it. They have it, it feels real. So yeah, it's been fun for me. It's actually allowed me to let go of some of the trauma of being a reporter. That is actually how I started this whole idea of writing this book. Was back when I was a reporter in Phoenix at the Fox station. I was one of just a beat reporter covering like what is the most heinous crime of the day. And I would go to these scenes, and at the end of the day, I couldn't sleep. It was a lot to try to process that as a young person. And so I started writing just as therapy to kind of get some of that off my chest. And I think it turned into some interesting stories. And then of course, a lot of it is completely fiction. So it's not that it's all true. It is a work of fiction, but it's got some elements that make you feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I think this person has seen something in their lifetime.
Yeah, there's definitely a gritty aspect. I mean, obviously, you know a lot more about uh, television journalism and the news than I do. But so I'm working characters in the series is Jimmy Doolittle, who was an American pilot who performed Second World War, and prior to that, he was a racing champion in planes. This was in the 1920s, and he raced in Cleveland, and it was his last race. And after the race, he retired, and the people were asking him, "Well, why are you retiring your prime?" And he have cameras on his wife and kids during the entire race, just hoping he'd crash
Oh my gosh.
so they could catch their reaction for the papers, you know. And so he thought, some of the experiences in television news and journalism, it sounds like it can be rough sometimes.
Yeah, it's brutal. I don't know why this popped in my head, but I had a report of a lot of times you become close with your photographer. If you're a reporter photographer team, you work together and you build a rapport. And that's part of the relationships you'll read throughout my series. Catalina has her favorite photographer, Sebastian, and based on photographers I worked with. And there were many times that they protected me. One of the guys in particular, Eric, he always would go up to the scene first and just say, you wait in the car for an extra beat so I can see it and make sure that it's something that you don't need to see. Because like one time we got to the scene before even many of the emergency responders, and someone had been sleeping on the train tracks. Sorry, now I'm going to get emotional. Look at this. Oh, and the person had been run over by a train. And so my photographer went around the corner to see it first. And he said, you need to not see this because it's real. And, that's the kind of stuff as a reporter, you're one of, the assignment manager back at the station is listening to the scanners and deciding where to send you. Well, if you happen to be the first, within a few blocks, you might get there before the police. And that's, it can be very intense. I mean, I have great respect for the news crews that are out in the field. I know that the media gets a really bad rap, and rightfully so, if they're not being ethical and not being real journalists, but the job is hard. And people, telling people stories in the worst moments of their lives, it's not easy.
No, I imagine, but I think in a way it influences how you write because we have friends who are very successful writing cozy mysteries where there's no swearing, there's no murders, there's no everything's kind of a Disney PG, aw shucks kind of ending. I think you could write whatever you wanted to write, Rosalinda, but I don't think after what you've seen, cozy mysteries are the genre that you take to.
It's funny that you say that because one of the quirks of my character, my main character, is she throws Disneyisms in because I used to be a Jungle Cruise skipper and I worked at Walt Disney World, and so I actually have a Disney side to my character. But then, like, they'll be on a scene and it's totally inappropriate, but like that's how you blow off steam, right? You crack a joke, you say something, obviously not in earshot of the victims' families or anything like that, but like privately with your photographer or with your live truck editor, operator, you might say something or they may say something, and it's because that's like how you process it. It's how you kind of let the trauma of what you're experiencing, kind of, you have to let it go because you actually have to stand there and be live on the air and coherent, which is not an easy thing to do. You're processing the emotional side of what you've just seen. You're working on actually doing the story, writing it, editing it, making sure that all the shots line up. I mean, I look back at that time in my life and I think I learned a lot more than just how to be a reporter during that era. Our internet has been very unpleasant today, so my apologies for the delays.
Yeah.
If you were talking, I missed it, Ash. We are on different continents, so we'll give ourselves a break.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine now. It's slowed down a bit earlier.
So how about you? You haven't had any experiences with like saber-toothed tigers or, when it comes to writing your stories, because he writes prehistoric fiction. Yeah, I mean, where do you draw those stories from?
I haven't had. Well, I think 90% of writing is just reading, and I've pretty much been reading everything I get my hands on since I was 5, and I really was heavily influenced by a couple of authors, a couple of nonfiction authors actually, and one was a fellow by the name of Jim Corbett, who's a national hero in India, and he's almost like a kind of a real Superman in that he was kind of a mild-mannered British civil engineer by day, but he'd grown up in the woods, and in parts of rural India at the turn of the century, you have a lot of conflict with apex predators. You have tigers and leopards, basically causing all sorts of problems with the villagers and that sort of thing. And Corbett would actually go track these animals down, and he wrote stories about this, about going after, he went after a tiger that had killed 1,000 people, right?
Oh,
And
gosh.
it was a very stealthy, ferocious predator, and he talked about how he actually managed to track it down and sort things out, right? So you read stories like that, and when you're writing something in a prehistoric setting, you have an idea of not the Disney version of what apex predators are like in the wild, but what they're really like in the wild. And so
Yeah.
hopefully some of that realism, you know, gets into your story and it's entertaining for folks. Right.
It well, and I've read your stories, so I can
But
totally see how that was woven into the story, and how your descriptions of how they tried to track the was it a saber-toothed tiger?
Mhm.
You know, that description, you obviously, thankfully, haven't had to run from a tiger, but like you said, you've pulled from other places, and that sense. I mean, it also, you've got an imagination, a really great imagination, and great ability to express yourself through writing. And not everyone has that, but good authors, I think it's pretty fun when you see that all come together like that.
Yeah, in a way, you're kind of, gathering things from here, from here, from here, from your experiences, from what you've seen, and just trying to put it all together and, and bake a good story, right?
Yeah.
So it can come from anywhere. And I think that, you're a writer when you have those moments, when books, and so you have to warn everybody around you, be careful around me because I might put it in a book, right? So, um, yeah, those are, and some of it is actual research. You want, like, if for this historical fiction series, I've read two books on the battles that are taking place during the story, right? So you want it to be authentic. Um, but a lot of it's fun. The research actually, I actually enjoy the research part of it, and I actually enjoy the marketing part of it, which some people don't so much enjoy the marketing, but that's part of the business as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going back to the research. I find I wanted to do, like, it would be really fun to do a show where I just like ask authors, pull up, like, how we can share screens in these live streams, and just say, okay, pull up your tabs, because some of the research, like, I open up incognito tabs because some of the stuff that I'm looking up, I'm like, I don't know if I want, how Google stalks you anyway. I'm like, I don't want them thinking that I'm looking up, how somebody might be killed in a unique way, or, what kinds of charges they would face if they committed this crime. So I just think it would be so interesting to, like, compare the tabs that we authors have open on our computer at any given time.
Yeah, I think that meme that I saw recently where it's like, some super secret government organization, and one of the people's looking at a screen and saying, "Oh, look at this! You've got cyanide, you've got bombs, you've got, how to kill somebody with a rope," and then the supervisor comes up to say, "Oh, it's just another author. Don't stress." Right.
Don't pay no attention to the tabs of this author, which I guess would be the perfect cover if you really were a bad person. Oh no, I'm an author. I'm just looking that up for,
Well, that's
research.
that's right. Like, at the risk of dating myself, right? One of the great movies from the '90s, Basic Instinct, right? Like, she's a serial killer and she writes a book about how she's going to kill people, and then the people end up dying. And then she actually, when she's being interrogated by the police, she says, "Do you think I'm stupid? Why would I write a book about how I was going to commit certain crimes and then commit those very same crimes that I wrote about in my book? Do you think I'm stupid?"
That's
Right.
funny.
So, uh,
Oh man. Yeah, it's fun to think about. I'm so curious too, because different genres have, I think, a different process. My daughter writes like fantasy and like YA fantasy kind of stuff. And I don't know where some of those stories come from, because I've known her whole life, and she's never had some of the experiences that she's writing about. So, like you said, she is a voracious reader. So I guess reading is a big part of that. I'm actually the opposite, and you know this. I'm not a big reader, and I know everybody. It's not something I admit publicly. It's kind of like that little bit embarrassing. But I'm a very slow reader. When I read deeply, and I love books, but I'm a very slow reader. So I think most of my writing comes just from my life experience. Um, with some interesting, like movies. I do like to watch movies. And so a lot of my books have more of a movie kind of feel, and they started as screenplays. So that makes sense.
Well, I think I don't think you have to be a voracious reader to succeed as an author. I think you have to be a voracious consumer of stories,
Mhm.
particularly in your genre, to get a feel for it, right? Because it doesn't matter if you've read 20 Westerns or listened to 20 Westerns on audiobooks or seen the movie, although
Yeah.
I'd recommend the audiobook over the movie. And then maybe you
Yeah.
take notes as to, okay, these are the common things in the genre. Because then if you go the route that I do where you don't have a developmental editor, where you just have a line editor, and if you've read enough books in your genre or consumed enough books in your genre, you pretty much know the genre cold. You know this is what the reader expects, this is what I have to deliver, this is the twist I can deliver. And that only comes through either you write a ton of books or you've consumed a lot of stories within that genre.
Right.
And if you do that, it becomes a lot easier
For
over
sure.
time.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of the things you taught me and some of the other authors that have been my mentors is that readers in each genre really expect certain tropes, and they're looking for those things. So if you're unfamiliar with the genre, you can be, I mean, there are people who just go outside those tropes and do whatever they want. And there's occasionally people who are very successful at that. It's not necessarily the way to get started, though. I think for me, I know the beats of telling a story. Part of that comes from just
I
telling a story, a minute and 15 seconds every day on the TV news, right? Like knowing that you need a beginning, middle, and end, and this is what gets you, and this is what keeps their attention. So storytelling is storytelling. Just some are longer form, some are shorter form.
Well, as someone who lives in Europe, which does not have Mexican or ethnic food, I would say that I think genres are kind of like cuisines in that you have a certain set of expectations. Like if you go to an Italian place, there's got to be some sort of pasta sauce or lasagna or pizza or something like that. As opposed to if you go to a Chinese place or a steakhouse, you just have a different set of expectations, and people can meet those expectations any way they want. And it's great if they can put a twist on it that's good. But if you don't give people what their expectations are at an Italian place, it's just like the wrong genre now, or not knowing your genre. Now, there are some people like there are like say celebrity chefs who you just kind of have the blind faith that they're such good storytellers. You'll read whatever book in whatever genre they write, for example,
Yeah.
and that's when you're getting somewhere. People just say, I just want to read Rosa Linda Roman books. I don't care if it's her mysteries. I don't care if it's her thrillers. I don't care. I just think she's a great storyteller. I want to read any story she puts out,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's rarer than just being like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm in the Mexican food genre. There better be tortillas and cheese and peppers and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's so good. That's a good analogy. I think that, and if it's delicious, it's delicious. And if it's not, it.
Yeah, but there's some people who love Mexican food and hate Chinese food. That's totally fine. Those like and they're people who love mysteries and hate romance, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. It's just if that's the genre that you write, it's your job to figure out what the expectations are for that genre and then deliver it in an entertaining fashion. And if you do that, you'll have success. And you don't need
Yeah.
publishers, and you don't need agents, and you don't need gatekeepers. You just need to form that relationship directly with your readers, giving them what they want in their genre.
For sure. I think that's really good advice. As someone who has had agents and has gone through the mainstream, career path, having worked at TV stations around the country, and I got most of my own jobs in broadcasting, and then I was like, oh, I should get an agent to take it to the next level. They were nice people, but it didn't. For me, I really prefer to just be in the driver's seat, for better or worse. I learned the lessons that I learned many of them the hard way in the business. And I think that translated for me in terms of my author career, because it feels like, yeah, I made some mistakes. I'm learning along the way, and I'm grateful for the experience that I've done. And now I know how to do it. And if I do want to, hire someone to help me, I know what I'm doing, and I'm not dependent on someone else who I don't know and I don't really trust. I can tell the story, and kind of like what you said, you like the marketing. I think that's one of those things that many of us don't really want to deal with. Oh, I'll hand it off to someone else. But you know your book better than anyone. You wrote it, right? And so don't hand it off too quickly. The tools are there now that didn't exist. When I started this book 25 years ago, these tools did not exist to be able to market the way we are. So take advantage of that.
And, I don't mean to disparage agents and that sort of thing. I know,
No,
there are things
they're
they can
great
do
agents.
that
There's
there are
many
channels
great
and doors
ones.
they can open. There are good ones out there. Like if you want to try to get your book made into a movie, it's harder to break into Hollywood as it stands right now without going down some of those traditional paths. But one of the most singular truths to this, which is entertaining people, is the agents, the directors. You'll see this $300 million Hollywood movie that completely flops, and all the experts in the world, people who are really good at their jobs, signed off on it, right? So
Right.
ultimately, it's the consumer, it's the viewer or the reader that makes the call, and that's who you should focus on in terms of, that's just my 2 cents on it, because a great agent, I'm sure, can add value, but even the great agent can't assure you that the readers are going to like your book or the viewers
Right.
are going to like your
For sure.
movie.
Yeah. Yep, that is true. I'm happy to see we have people here this time around. We have a person popped in a hello in the chat. So thank you, Glenn something, I can't read, but hi. It's very nice. And this is, we've been doing this show every week. We do this, it's Friends and Authors Live. We do it every Tuesday at 1:00 Mountain Time. It's currently 9:00 where you are, right? In Central Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every Tuesday we do this, and we talk about different subjects, and you guys can put a comment in the chat and, after the fact in the replay, and let us know what you'd like to learn about and what you'd like to hear about. As Ash said, he has 13 books already published? More than that? Sorry, we have a delay. He's got a bunch of books published.
Yeah.
I've got 6 books published. So we have some experience and would love to share that here with any of you that are here live with us. I'm laughing because on my end, it's just me talking, but then I know it's just because it's delayed. So I feel like when one of my daughters was over in the Middle East, and there was literally, we'd start talking and then there was this massive delay. I'd have to wait, or else she'd talk over me and vice versa. So welcome to technology.
Yeah, it's been challenging with the connection this show.
It's probably too hot, is my guess. It's just nobody wants to work.
Yeah,
The internet doesn't want to work. All right. Well, we'll work on it for next week. Everybody is here. Thank you for checking out our show, and let us know what subjects you'd like to hear for next week. But for now, I think we're going to wrap it up. This is Friends and Authors Live. I'm Rosa Linda Roman with AK Vyas, and we're here every week. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.